Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Kevin Hartman never imagined his perfect life would fall apart on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, between a plate of tacos and a conversation with his best friend. But that's exactly what happened, and in a way he could never have predicted. Kevin was 36 and worked as a civil engineer in Austin, Texas, a city that had grown as much as his own career in recent years. He was meticulous, organized, the kind of person who always had a backup plan. His wife, Amanda, 33, was a marketing analyst at one of the big tech companies that had turned Austin into an innovation hub. They'd met at a professional conference 5 years earlier, married after a year of intense dating, and built what anyone on the outside would consider an enviable life: a house in a quiet neighborhood, 2 cars in the garage, annual trips to exotic destinations, and now the cherry on top, Liam, their 6-month-old son, the most beautiful baby Kevin had ever seen. The first few months after Liam's birth were, as expected, a whirlwind of diapers, 3 a.m. bottles, inexplicable crying fits, and exhaustion Kevin had never known before. But he loved every second of it. He loved coming home after a long day reviewing bridge and building plans to find his son smiling in his stroller. He loved giving Liam baths, changing his tiny outfits, feeling the small weight of him drifting off to sleep against his chest. Amanda had taken a 6-month maternity leave, and Kevin thought she was adjusting well, or at least that's what he wanted to believe. The truth was, in recent weeks, Amanda had seemed different. More distant. She was always glued to her phone, smiling at the screen in a way Kevin hadn't seen her smile at him in months. When he asked what was so funny, she gave vague answers. "Oh, just the girls from work sharing silly stuff in our group chat." Kevin wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her. After all, Amanda was about to return to the office after 6 months at home. It made sense she'd want to reconnect with her coworkers, right? He tried to be the understanding husband, the partner who didn't smother, who trusted. It was that trust that started crumbling that Tuesday in March, while Kevin was having lunch with Greg Mitchell, his best friend since college. They met once or twice a month at a Mexican restaurant halfway between their offices. Greg was an architect, outgoing and blunt, the opposite of Kevin in many ways, but they clicked perfectly. That day, though, Greg was acting strange. He fidgeted with his napkin, avoided Kevin's eyes, and pushed his food around without eating. "Dude, what's wrong? You're acting like you've seen a ghost," Kevin joked, though his voice carried a note of worry. Greg sighed deeply, set down his fork, and looked Kevin straight in the eye. "Kevin, I need to tell you something. And you're not going to like it." Kevin's stomach clenched instantly. Something in Greg's tone, in the seriousness of his expression, set off every alarm in his head. "What happened?" Kevin asked, already feeling his heart race. Greg pulled his phone from his pocket, unlocked it, and after hesitating for a second that felt like an eternity, turned the screen toward Kevin. The photo was crystal clear: Amanda, his wife, sitting at a table in an upscale restaurant Kevin recognized as one of the city's most expensive. She was smiling, leaning forward, and next to her, so close their shoulders touched, was a man Kevin had never seen before. He looked corporate, with a sharp haircut and a crisp dress shirt. But what made Kevin's blood boil wasn't the physical closeness. It was the hand. That man's hand was resting on Amanda's on the table in an intimate, familiar gesture that left no room for interpretation. Amanda wasn't pulling away. She was smiling. "Where did you get this?" Kevin asked, his voice rougher than he intended. Greg took a deep breath. "My cousin Carla works as a hostess at that restaurant. She sent me this photo last night." "Kevin, she said she's seen Amanda there with that guy several times over the past few weeks. Always at lunchtime, always at the same corner table, always, like that." Greg made a vague gesture with his hand, as if words failed him. But Kevin understood perfectly. He took Greg's phone, zoomed in on the photo, and memorized every detail. The timestamp in the corner, 2 days earlier, Thursday, 1:20 p.m. He remembered that day vividly. Amanda had said she was meeting old work friends to catch up before officially returning to the office. Kevin had stayed home working remotely, taking care of Liam, warming bottles, changing diapers. Meanwhile, Amanda was there. With him. "Who is this guy?" Kevin asked, handing the phone back. Greg shook his head. "Carla doesn't know his name, but she said he always pays with a corporate card. Seems like he's from Amanda's company." A wave of nausea hit Kevin. He grabbed his wallet, threw enough cash on the table to cover both their meals, and stood up. "Sorry, Greg. I gotta go." Greg grabbed his arm. "Kevin, think before you do anything." Maybe it's not, but Kevin was already walking out, his mind racing, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his temples. It was 2 p.m. when Kevin got home. He'd cancelled all his afternoon meetings, sending a vague email about a family emergency. Technically, it wasn't a lie. His family life was, at that very moment, collapsing. He parked in the garage, took 3 deep breaths trying to calm down, and entered through the kitchen door. The house was quiet, except for the muffled sound of the TV coming from the living room. Amanda was on the couch, wearing sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun. She looked like the picture of an exhausted mom who'd spent the day caring for a baby. Liam was asleep peacefully in his stroller beside her. Amanda held her phone, quietly laughing at something on the screen. When she heard Kevin come in, she looked up, surprised. "Babe? What are you doing here? I thought you had meetings until 5. Kevin didn't answer right away. He just stood there, looking at her, the woman he'd married, built a life with, had a child with, the baby now sleeping innocently just a few feet away. He tried to reconcile the woman on the couch with the woman in the photo. Were they the same person? How could she seem so normal? He pulled his phone from his pocket, opened the photo Greg had sent, and walked over to the couch. Without a word, he dropped the phone on the coffee table, screen facing up, displaying the damning image. "Why don't you tell me who he is?" Kevin said, his voice eerily calm. Amanda looked at the phone, and Kevin saw the exact moment she understood. He watched the color drain from her face, her eyes widen, her hands start to tremble. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Kevin, I can explain. Those words. Those damn words every cheater says." A cold anger spread through Kevin's chest. "Then explain," he said, crossing his arms. "I'm waiting. While I'm working my ass off to support this house, while I'm here taking care of our son so you can have free time, you're having romantic lunches with another guy. Our son is 6 months old, Amanda. 6 months." Amanda stood up from the couch, hands outstretched in a pleading gesture. "Kevin, it's not what you think. He's just a coworker, James. We work together in the marketing department. He's been helping me get ready to go back to the office, catching me up on projects, changes." Kevin cut her off with a bitter laugh. "A coworker who puts his hand on yours at a fancy restaurant? A coworker you sneak off to lunch with, lying to your husband about where you are? My friend has photos, Amanda. Not just this one. Several. From different weeks. Always the two of you. Always at that same restaurant. Always like that." He took his phone back and scrolled through the other images Greg had sent. Each one was a stab to the gut. Amanda and James laughing together. Amanda and James leaving the restaurant side by side. Amanda and James in the parking lot, him touching her arm. "How many times?" Kevin asked. "How many times did you look me in the eye, kiss me, sleep in my bed, hold our son, and then go meet him?" Amanda started crying, thick tears streaming down her face. "Kevin, please, listen to me. I didn't cheat on you. Nothing happened between us. It's just friendship. Friendship? Kevin practically spat the word. Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I can't see the way you're looking at him in these photos? The way he's looking at you? God, Amanda, you two look like a couple. Amanda sank back onto the couch, her face in her hands, sobbing. I felt alone, she said between sobs. You were so focused on the baby, setting up the nursery, being the perfect dad. I felt invisible. James, he listened to me. He made me feel like I was still interesting, like I wasn't just a mom. Kevin felt like he'd been punched. I was focused on being a dad because we had a son, Amanda. Our son. Sorry if I thought that was a priority. Sorry if I thought building a family meant something. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to keep control. And even if I'd been the worst husband in the world, that doesn't give you the right to do this. Did you come to me? Did you talk to me? No. You chose to sneak around with another man. Amanda tried to move closer, but Kevin stepped back. Nothing's happened yet, Kevin. I swear. We've just talked, just had lunch together. I never cheated on you physically. Kevin looked at her with an expression Amanda had never seen before, a mix of contempt and something worse, deep disappointment. Yet, he repeated. You said, yet. Which means you were considering it. You were thinking about cheating on me while I'm taking care of our newborn son. Do you have any idea how sick that is? He grabbed his car keys. I'm leaving. I'm staying at my mom's for a few days. I need to think. Amanda stood up, desperate. Don't take Liam, please. Kevin looked at his sleeping son, then back at Amanda. I'm not taking him now. But don't think this is over. He walked out, leaving Amanda crying in the living room. In the days that followed, Kevin acted with a determination he didn't know he had. He consulted a divorce attorney, one of the best in Austin, specializing in family law. The lawyer, a middle-aged man named Robert Chin, listened to the whole story, reviewed the photos, and shook his head. You've got a solid case. Emotional infidelity can be hard to prove, but this evidence is very strong. We'll need more. Kevin followed Robert's advice. He hired a data recovery specialist who accessed Amanda's iCloud backup. What he found was devastating. Messages between Amanda and James started innocently 3 months earlier, right after Liam was born. It was great talking to you today. I missed those office conversations. But they quickly escalated. You make me laugh in a way I haven't in months. I think about you when I should be thinking about other things. Sometimes I wonder how things would have been if we'd met sooner. And then, the message that erased any doubt in Kevin's mind, I'm trapped, James. Kevin's a good man, but he's not you. I need to wait for the right moment. Kevin felt like he'd been shot. He read and reread that message, searching for another interpretation, but there was none. Amanda had been planning to leave him. She was just waiting for the right moment. Robert Chen, seeing the messages, almost smiled. This changes everything. She's not just emotionally involved, she's planning. That shows intent, premeditation. We'll use this. Kevin also discovered, through their joint bank statements, something he'd missed. Amanda had made purchases at high-end stores in recent weeks, including lingerie from a French boutique Kevin knew she'd never worn with him. There were also charges from expensive restaurants on days she'd claimed to be resting at home. The lies ran deeper than he'd imagined. But the real twist came when Robert, doing his due diligence, investigated James. It turned out James wasn't just a single, available co-worker. He was married, 8 years, 2 young kids. His wife, Melissa, was an elementary school teacher who had no idea what her husband was doing during lunch hours. After much thought, Kevin made a difficult decision. He asked Robert to contact Melissa. She deserved to know. They met at a neutral cafe. Melissa was a petite woman with dark hair and gentle eyes that turned red when Kevin showed her the evidence. She didn't cry in front of a stranger, but Kevin saw how her hands trembled as she held the photos. "Thank you for telling me," was all she said, her voice steady despite the obvious pain. Melissa acted fast. She confronted James that same night. Their argument was heard by neighbors. But she didn't stop there. As a teacher, she dealt with rules and policies daily and knew exactly what to do. She took all the evidence Kevin had shared, added her own findings from James's messages, and sent a formal email to Human Resources at the tech company where both James and Amanda worked. The email detailed an inappropriate relationship between two employees, including the use of work hours for personal meetings and possible violations of the company's conduct policy. The company took the complaints seriously, very seriously. Within a week, both James and Amanda were called in for separate HR meetings. The company had a strict policy against relationships that could compromise the professional environment or create conflicts of interest. Worse for James, he was a senior supervisor, technically in a position of authority over Amanda in the company hierarchy. That turned the relationship into a potential abuse of power violation. James was fired after an internal investigation revealed he'd used corporate cards to pay for multiple lunches with Amanda, falsely categorizing them as team development meetings. Amanda received a formal written warning and was placed on a 90-day probation. Any further slip-ups would mean immediate termination. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings moved forward. Kevin had moved into a temporary apartment and was fighting for primary custody of Liam. Amanda, desperate, argued that she was the mother, that she'd spent the first 6 months caring for the baby, that she had a special bond. But Robert Chen was relentless. He presented the messages showing Amanda viewed the marriage as a prison and was waiting for the right moment to leave. He showed the unexplained expenses, the documented lies, the erratic behavior. At the temporary custody hearing, the judge was a gray-haired woman with a stern expression named Harriet Morrison. She heard both sides, reviewed the evidence, and then looked directly at Amanda. "Mrs. Hartman, you placed an extramarital relationship above your responsibilities to your newborn son. The evidence shows a clear pattern of deception, dishonesty, and disrespect, not just to your marriage, but to the integrity of the family you helped create." She banged her gavel. Primary custody granted to Mr. Hartman. Mrs. Hartman will have supervised visits on alternating weekends until she demonstrates emotional stability and proper commitment. Amanda left the hearing shattered. She tried reaching out to James, seeking some comfort, some sign that everything she'd risked had been worth it. But James had changed his number, blocked her on all social media, and gone back to Melissa, begging for forgiveness. Melissa took him back, not out of love, but for the kids, though everyone knew their marriage would never be the same. For Amanda, things only got worse. 3 months after the warning, her job performance had plummeted. She arrived late, turned in incomplete projects, seemed distant and distracted. She was battling depression, guilt, and the reality of having lost her child, her marriage, and her career. The company, having no patience for second chances, fired her. Unemployed, facing legal fees, and with limited custody, Amanda had to move into a tiny apartment on the less desirable side of town, splitting rent with a roommate she barely knew. 2 years passed since that fateful Tuesday. Kevin had rebuilt his life brick by brick. He sold the house he'd shared with Amanda, the memories were too painful, and bought a smaller, cozier one, perfect for him and Liam. His mom helped with the baby when Kevin needed to work, and slowly, a new routine settled in. Liam was growing into a cheerful, healthy boy who proudly called Kevin Daddy. Kevin even started dating again. He wasn't looking, but he met a preschool teacher named Sophie at a park where he took Liam to play. Sophie was kind, patient, and loved kids. They started slowly, with casual coffees and long conversations. There was no rush. Kevin had learned the hard way that building something real takes time. Sophie met Liam after 3 months of dating, and the way the boy lit up when she played with him on the floor was all the confirmation Kevin needed. There was a future there. Amanda, on the other hand, hadn't recovered. She landed a job at a smaller company, earning less than half her previous salary, doing basic administrative tasks that required no creativity or responsibility. She saw Liam once a month, always with a supervisor present, always in a neutral, uncomfortable setting. The boy, now 2.5, clearly preferred staying with his dad. When Amanda tried to hug him, he'd pull away, searching for Kevin with his eyes. Each visit was silent torture. She'd tried, a few times, to contact Kevin, apologizing, begging for a second chance, not necessarily in marriage, but as co-parents, as friends. Kevin always replied politely but firmly, "Amanda, I wish you the best, but what you did can't be undone. Liam will learn the truth when he's older, and I'll make sure he knows both his parents love him. But you and I will never be more than strangers connected by a son. You chose this." One night, Kevin was putting Liam to bed, reading a dinosaur book for the 10th time that week, when the boy looked up at him with big, curious eyes and asked, "Daddy, why doesn't my mom live here?" Kevin took a deep breath. They'd talked about this before, but only superficially. "Sometimes, son, people make choices that hurt others. Your mom made choices that hurt Daddy, so we can't live together. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. She just made mistakes. Adults make mistakes too." Liam thought about that for a moment. "Did you make mistakes, Daddy?" Kevin smiled sadly. "I did. I still do. But I try to learn from them. And I always try to do my best for you." Liam nodded, satisfied, and turned his attention back to the dinosaurs. Kevin watched his son, this small human who depended on him completely, and felt deep gratitude for having acted when he did. If he'd ignored the signs, let things slide, been complacent, where would they be now? Liam deserved to grow up in an honest home, even if it was just with one parent, rather than in a house full of lies and resentment. That night, after Liam finally fell asleep, Kevin sat on the porch with a beer, looking up at the stars over Austin. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophie, "Thinking of you. Good night." Kevin smiled, something he hadn't done often 2 years ago. He replied with a heart and put his phone away. Life hadn't ended that fateful Tuesday. It had just taken a different path. A painful, difficult path, but in the end, a more honest one. And Kevin Hartman, the man who always had a backup plan, learned that sometimes the best plans are the ones you make after everything falls apart. You clear the wreckage, keep what's still good, and rebuild. Brick by brick, day by day, hug by hug. And eventually, you look around and realize you've built something better than you had before. Something real. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.